Alright, everybody, I'm pretty sure you guys know what the deal is. Recently, we got a good look at what the PS5 controller is going to look like. Ironically, it's not the DualShock 5, it's the DualSense. I'm probably just going to call it the DualShock 5. It's been DualShock since 1998, I believe. Um, Now, I have mixed feelings about this controller, not necessarily from an aesthetic standpoint, but I understand there's a lot of controversy around the overall look of the controller, and I want to address that before I get deeper into like how I actually feel about the piece of machinery that it is. Now, mention this controller online, particularly Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever. Xbox fans, which I'm not going to say anything about Xbox fans in general, will say that this thing looks like an Xbox One controller, but with the sticks in a different place, which is funny because I mean, PlayStation sticks have been in the same spot for 22 years. Now, what I find interesting is that with the DualShock 4, right? The DualShock 4 and the DualSense don't look wildly different. Let me bring these tabs close together. It's still roughly the same thing. You got your touchpad, you got face buttons, button orientation is pretty much the same. And people have been saying for a long time that the PS4 is too small. PS4 controller, sorry, the DualShock 4 is too small, and they want it bigger because people will say that Sony doesn't make controllers for grown-ups. Which I have large hands. I am an African American male. I have very large hands. I know for a fact that the PS4 controller is quite big enough for the average adult. PS2 controller, on the other hand, but Sony is like, okay, a lot of people think that the DualShock 4 is a little bit too small, so let's make it a little wider, give you some more real estate to hold onto the thing. Now it suddenly looks like an Xbox controller. Like, really? I mean, because controller form factor has been roughly the same for a good amount of time. And honestly, when I saw this, I love how it looks. I'm not gonna lie. I think it looks amazing. I think it's very sleek. I like how it's got the black and white kind of like futuristic spaceship type look to it. It gives me a good idea of what the PS5 itself is going to look like. And I love white technology. I'm sorry. Just seeing this being white is amazing. I don't think I'm going to buy another color for this thing unless they come up with like a silver or whatever. But what it honestly looks more like to me was the Switch controller. And funny enough, look at the stick orientation on the Switch controller. Because I'm looking at it from, it's wider up top, right? That's the thing. That's the big thing. It's wider up top, and the handles have more of a flat edge. Whoops, that's a Wii U controller. The Switch controller doesn't exactly have the flatter edges. That is an Xbox thing, whatever. But it's wider up top, right? And look at the stick orientation, right? Like, are you really not going to say that this is a slightly retooled Xbox controller? People said nothing about this in 2017 when this thing came out. Like, are you kidding me? Like, are you absolutely serious? What is this? Oh, this is just another thing about the DualShock 5. Is this about whatever? I guess I pulled up two things because this thing talks about the features. I think yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to all that. Where am I at? But yeah, I think this thing looks great. And we're gonna get into a bit of the history of controllers, I guess, because Xbox does their own thing, right? That's okay. I have the N64 controller right here. Whatever. Let's talk about this real quick. At the time that like stick controllers were becoming a huge deal, this is what Nintendo was rocking. This crappy little stick in the middle of the controller, 3-handle controller. This controller sucked. So when the DualShock 1, when the PS1 controller came out, and it was pretty much perfect, and then they added sticks for certain games, it was just, it became the new gold standard, really. So, as far as form factor goes, Sony didn't have to change too much because what they had was not broken. Now, I want to take a look at the original Xbox controller. 2000, what was this, 2? Look at this big hunk of meat, right? This thing is not very well designed. And by the time you get to the 360, a lot's different because a lot had to be different. But between the 360 and the One, there's not too much going on. Now, I'm going to pull up what the Xbox Series X controller looks like because it's not too different from the Xbox One controller. It pretty much looks the exact same as the Xbox One controller, right? Because at this point, they are at a form factor where not too much needs to change. I don't personally like the Xbox One controller. I don't like asymmetrical sticks in the first place because if you're holding something with the same weight in both hands, your fingers are going to rest in the same spots on both hands, right? So the fact that you need the left stick to move and the right stick to move the camera, and they're just not lined up, it just doesn't feel right when I'm playing. I don't know, maybe that's just a me thing, whatever. But with the symmetrical sticks, Sony's not the first people to do that. Well, forgive me, they're not the only people to do that, because look at the Wii U Pro controller. This thing isn't particularly well designed. I think the buttons and the sticks are in the wrong place. But still, symmetrical sticks. The Stadia controller, symmetrical sticks. Now, the Stadia controller isn't a bad controller, honestly. But A, B, X, Y in the exact same spots. But it's not a retooled Xbox One controller. I kind of think that's interesting. I just feel like it's kind of disingenuous to say that because something looks different, it's suddenly a retooled Xbox controller. Because I believe the GameCube came out after the original Xbox, and this is what the controller looked like. I know this is a Switch controller, blah, blah, blah. You can use this for the Switch, but it is the GameCube controller. It's what it looked like. Asymmetrical sticks, and nobody's saying, oh, the Xbox controller only looks the way it did because the GameCube controller, or vice versa, whatever. I just think it's interesting that the moment Sony tries to change things up, try to make the thing a little bit wider, it's basically the exact same layout, except it looks like they've done a little bit with the home button, and then there's the microphone. We'll talk about all those features here soon enough. But literally, the only thing that I can kind of see where you would say it looks like an Xbox controller is just the fact that it's shaped differently. But look really closely, right? The top of the PS5 controller comes out much wider and then slopes a more curved way down. Over here on the Xbox Series X controller, it's more of a slant that rounds out really sharp here at the bottom. DualSense, it rounds out wider here up at the top. The literal only way I can see how you legitimately think that this is the same as the Xbox controller is just that these very bottom parts right here. And even then, it's flatter here and it's more slanted and curved on the Xbox controller. Because I've had a lot of people say, hold them next to each other. And I'm like, okay, I hold my PS4 controller next to my actual Xbox One controller that I use for my PC all the time because I just compare them in my free time. I've talked about the controller differences in a video before. They are wildly different controllers. I don't know how that's so hard for people to get, to wrap their heads around. But yeah, they are not the same controller design whatsoever. I don't really understand how, the minute Sony decides to change things up ever so slightly, because let's be honest, this is still the same form factor that they've been rocking for a very long time, because as I said earlier, they didn't need to change things too drastically because what they have works. So I will wrap that part up and we will talk about the features that this thing's packing, right? The haptic feedback and adaptive triggers, because okay, my thing about this controller is I'm excited by these features that are coming out, but I'm also a little bit nervous because it might end up not mattering. The haptic feedback and adaptive triggers I think is really interesting because it's like basically the triggers will give resistance, and as will the sticks. Like depending on the situation that your characters are in, the controller will give feedback that is supposed to help simulate being in that situation yourself. It's supposed to help with immersion. But I'm wondering, will that actually end up hindering the experience? Because I really don't want to I'm playing Tomb Raider 4 if that ever gets made, and trying to draw back a bow. I'm pulling on this string, and the stick is just giving me such a hard time to press because the technology just might not be perfect, might not be ready just yet. Very worried about that sort of thing. Will that be a turnoff to casual gamers? Because let's be honest, PlayStation is largely a casual platform. I mean, when you're looking at you just want to play some new games, Xbox One costs more than the PS4. PS4 has a whole lot more games. PS4, you get the PS Plus, it gives you better games for free every month. If you're a casual and that's all you're looking at, you're probably just going to go with the PS4. That's how that works. I'm sorry. The battery I really need the battery on the DualSense to last a lot longer than the battery on the DualShock 4. And what I'm worried about is this whole haptic feedback and adaptive triggers, because let's be honest, DualShock 4 has things in it that don't get used very well. I like the concept of the light bar. I like the touchpad. Both of those things made a comeback. I like the speaker, but I usually have my headset plugged into my controller, so the speaker hardly ever becomes a factor for me. I have my light bar dimmed all the way down, but you can't turn it off, and it's constantly pulling at the battery life for no real reason. Now, the top of the touchpad is somewhat translucent, so that you can see a bit of the light bar coming through the front of the touchpad, but you're hardly ever really just looking at your controller while you're playing something. The only way I've ever really noticed anything cool going on with the light bar is if my room is completely dark and something dynamic happens, like you're getting chased by the cops in GTA and your light bar starts flashing blue and red. That's typically how I notice that sort of thing. And it's unfortunate that it takes such a specific set of events for me to see something like that, but that's how it is. Now, they've put the light bar, it looks like they got rid of it up top, as you can see from this picture. But that being said, there are thin light strips on either side of the touchpad, which, as you can see, the touchpad is slightly bigger here. So what I'm hoping is that with all this time that these devs have had with this technology, that the touchpad gets used for more than a fucking select button. Because think about most of the games you play. The touchpad brings up the map in most cases. It doesn't do a whole lot else besides that. GTA changes the camera angle. In some games you can like swipe it to scroll, which that's kind of cool. But apart from that, it just doesn't get used for a whole lot. And it's something that I feel like makes the controller a little bit more expensive and makes the games a little bit harder to download, because sometimes there's extra data for no real reason because of things like the touchpad and the light bar having to be programmed for. I'm sure they're going to bring back the motion control, so I hope that gets done better with. Honestly, I think the PS4 game that did the motion controls the best was Infamous Second Son, where you can shake the controller like a paint can and start spray painting. That's the coolest thing it's ever done. I enjoy that I appreciate that they're switching to a Type-C port for the USB, because my phone, the Galaxy S10, works on that port, and the Switch runs on that port, so you can just one cord charge all three of those devices. I feel like that's really convenient, because on the side of Xbox Series X, they're still using batteries. I understand that 2 AA batteries last longer than a charge on any rechargeable device, and I understand that rechargeable batteries by Energizer, Duracell, whatever, all of those exist. But I hate the concept of sticking batteries in a controller. I had a 360 and I played an Xbox One for a very long time. I am aware of this. I don't know if this affects everybody in the same aspect, but it is possible, like through wear and tear, or maybe, a kid is handling the controller or whatever, just not handling it properly. The receiver, like spring, the panel that you put the battery into, can become bent, can become misshapen, might not conduct the energy very well, and you might be constantly losing battery life when you don't need to be, or you're just not getting a proper current through the battery because things are just not aligned properly. Things can affect the controller if it operates on batteries. And there's probably going to be a rechargeable battery pack for the Xbox Series X, just like there is for the One, just like there is for the 360. And I just feel like the reason that they're still using these batteries is because they can sell these battery packs. I feel like it's a way that they can cheap out on the production of the controller and make more money by selling a peripheral for $15, $20, $30, however expensive that thing is going to end up being when it comes out a week after the console launches. Now, what I was saying earlier about the DualSense battery, I have a feeling that the battery's going to last a lot longer, because in 2013, the best cell phone on the market was like the iPhone 5, right? And since then, rechargeable batteries have been through a lot of research and development, a lot of experimentation. We know a lot more about how to make a good lithium-ion battery that can last a good while, hold a good charge, and hopefully won't degrade too much over time, because chances are, if you still have your same DualShock 4 from 2013, it's not holding a very good charge anymore. So I want it to have some more longevity, because a cynic would say it's just built that way so that it can so they can just charge you more money for a whole new controller later on. Now, the built-in mic. I don't like that, but I mean, it does come with an off button that you can mute it. That's cool, but I dread the thought of a kid in Modern Warfare putting the mic up to his mouth and screaming expletives at you while you're just trying to cap A, or somebody not realizing that they have it turned off and their girlfriend is cooking in the background and yelling or whatever. Just, I don't want to hear people's personal lives through this controller built microphone. I don't think everybody's going to be conscious enough of it to turn it off. Now, does it stay off when you turn it off? Like, you turn it off, then you turn the controller off later on, turn the controller back on. Is the mic still off? That's a very important thing to know. I do appreciate, though, that you can still plug in a headset and use that mic, because that, oh boy. Because, again, I can't imagine the microphone on this controller being very good. It probably will be better than like the PlayStation Silver headset that came out with the PS4 at launch, but I don't see it being like Steel Series or even PlayStation Gold or Turtle Beach quality whatsoever. I just don't think that this mic will be the move. And again, not everybody wants to chat in game. Some people, they get home from work, they just want to play a couple games of Battlefield or Rainbow Six or Call of Duty. Call it a night. They don't want to talk to people. They don't want to communicate. They don't want to do calls. They don't want to do any of that. So the mic doesn't really seem like it's appealing to a very large demographic of people. But we will see what happens with that. The create button. I'm very interested to see what they do with that, because I loved the share button. I love how easy it is to open photo mode, pop a quick screenshot, boom, that's your wallpaper. I love how easy it is to upload a video to YouTube, because I am very lazy. I do not want to move my videos from the PlayStation to a USB, from a USB to my computer so that I can edit the video properly. I kind of just want to record a 55-minute video and upload it straight up. I just like to do that. I like that you can start a live stream straight from your controller. What I want them to do, though, is get rid of that stupid black outline that has the chat and like the stream runtime and all that stuff. I think that's very useless, and it distracts from the people that are watching the stream. Okay, you know what? Here's what I'll say. I understand why it's there. It's so that the streamer can have all that information right in front of them. Because like if you're streaming on Twitch on a computer or something like that, you probably have multiple monitors and you can monitor all of that stuff on your other monitor. But you can't do that if you're just streaming on your TV. So I get that they want to put all that information in front of you, but it just doesn't. If it was only visible to you, like you could press a button, pull that stuff up, and it didn't get in the way of what you can see and what the viewers can see, I feel like that would be fine. But it's just such this obstacle that the streamer and the viewers have to just put up with, and I don't like that. I don't like having to do that whatsoever. I think it's very inconvenient. Now, I guess that's really. Oh yeah, the What was I looking? What was I looking at? Anyway, that's all I really wanted to say about the what's happening to me. Point is, that's all I really wanted to say about these controllers. I'm kind of tired of hearing the "it looks like an Xbox controller. I like the Xbox controller Sony made. Here's the like it's just old, you know. It got old very quickly, and I only made this video because I asked you guys if that's what you wanted to see. So I should really turn on ad blocker. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys very soon.